Hi, my name is Lynzi Clyde, and this is Learn, Live, Love Yourself, a podcast where self-discovery leads to self-lovery. Each episode, I am delivering fun, practical ways to peel back the layers of your life and tap into that deep down you. Changing your mind one challenge at a time, this podcast will get you loving yourself better every day. It's time to grow. Come learn, live, love yourself with me. Episode 2. Learn. What's on your brain bookshelf? It was a spicy, hot Arizona day when I told my mom, I want to be a singer like Britney Spears when I grow up. We had just pulled into our driveway and Hit Me Baby One More Time was bumping on the radio in the background. But Linz, she said carefully, it's really hard to be a famous singer. You have to be ... really good. Oh, her gentle reality check still didn't bother me at all, and I jumped out of the car singing, I must confess, I still believe. Probably just about as good as I just did right now. A few years later, we were on a road trip home from California when we pulled up to a gas station for a bathroom break. I was in the middle row, in the middle seat of the Suburban with my Walkman on, listening to a Burn CD that my friend Courtney had made for me. And I was singing super loudly, okay? I just called to say I love you. You know, just belting it. Such a heartfelt, soulful song. Really, really loud in this Suburban. And finally I hear, Lynzi! And I must have been singing so loudly because they had been telling me to stop for a while. You need to turn it down. You're singing too loud and you're off. Off, as in off pitch, off key. Ouch. I'm sure they were just trying to say it to, get me to just be quiet and not sing loudly in a car full of people who are listening to their own music. It makes sense to me now as an adult, but at the time, dagger to my heart. And then I remembered my Britney Spears episode, and that story, which didn't bother me at all at the time, went from, it's hard to be famous, to, you won't ever be famous because you can't sing. That story shifted in my head, and it embarrassed me so much that it shut me down from singing in front of people for years. Fast forward to basketball practice in the junior high gym. I was softly singing to myself, does that make me crazy? Does that make me... You know that Gnarl Sparkly song, right? My friend Val comes up behind me. She's like suddenly right next to my shoulder and said, Linz, you have a good voice. And I don't know if she was just saying that to be nice, probably, maybe, but kablamo! Suddenly, my whole perspective changed in an instant. Again, I thought, maybe I can sing. And then I did sing. I joined a choir. I starred in a couple musicals in high school, and I've made singing a part of my life ever since. Am I the best singer ever? No, not even close. But that's really just not the point. We all have our stories. They're the stories that we tell ourselves, the stories that have been told to us, the stories we tell others about ourselves. And some of these stories we hold very close, and some of them we try to forget. What we don't realize, I think, most of the time, is that these stories hold so much power. They inform us about who we are in the world. And when we let these stories go unnoticed and let them just sit around in the background of our brains, changing the way that we think and how we speak, I think it's a huge disservice to ourselves. Because these stories have as much power as we give to them. We have the ability to mold and shape our stories. This happens so easily and so naturally most of the time that we don't even notice it. We take in experiences and then we tell ourselves a story about who we are because of that thing that we've done or the things that have happened to us. And we need these stories, but we don't always need the baggage that comes along with them. So let's talk about this. As a kid, I don't think we're really self-aware enough to have the tools to change our perspective when bad things or good things happen to us. We can't step outside of ourselves and think, okay, well, this is just an experience. This has nothing to do with me. The part where I come in is how I decide to react to these experiences. So if we take a look at my stories, that first time my mom told me, like, it's really hard to be a famous singer, which she's totally right? I was not going to be Britney Spears. I don't have the talent, and honestly, she had some hard times, so I'm not sure that I would want to actually to follow in her footsteps, but you know what I mean. When she first told me that, I just let it roll right off my shoulders. I jumped out of the car and kept singing. Who cares if it's hard to be famous? It's something I really want to do. Like, isn't that amazing that as children you can kind of just let go of these stigmas and the difficulties that something might present and just still dream? That was an unconscious choice, but it's a choice, nonetheless now. I can make the stories that happen to me now roll off my shoulders just like that if I put my mind to it. And there is also power in re-evaluating your stories. So if I'm looking back at this story about the second time when I'm singing in the car with my Walkman headphones on, I could think to myself, yeah, that really embarrassed me. But I could step back and say, well, why was I embarrassed? Well, because I wanted to be a good singer, and I wasn't being a good singer, and people got mad at me for singing. But what does that actually say about me? It says that I was being inconsiderate, for one, which I learned from and stopped doing. And two, it shows that by that point in my life, if I came up against opposition, I wasn't willing to change and try harder and do something different to actually make it work. The third story, my friend Val shows me there is so much power in the friends and the people that you surround yourselves with. They can make all the difference. So we should take that into consideration as well. Okay? So what does this mean for you? What does this look like for you in your life? As I've been speaking, you've probably come up with a few stories of your own that might have happened to you in your youth or even just yesterday. This week's pop challenge is to take a few stories and write them down. Just give them titles, okay? So I'm going to let you either type this on your phone or get out a pen and a piece of paper. Personally, I'm a pen and pencil paper girl. I like physical things that I can touch. I like to read physical books. That's what motivates me and makes me happy. So if you're like me, you're going to get out a piece of paper and a pen. And I'm going to stall a little bit longer so that if you're digging through your junk drawer for a pen, you've got time. Otherwise, the rest of you are going to pull out your phone and write these things down. It's important to write them down as they come because throughout this week, as you are going about your days, you might have something come to you, a memory from your childhood or even from last week that you say, oh, that's a story I'm carrying around. That's a story that has worked itself into my brain and it tells me something about me. Okay, so the first one, number 1, take your piece of paper or your phone or whatever, write a 1, a 2, and a 3 down on the left side. And you're going to be adding more to this as the week goes on, so leave some space. So number 1 is a story or time in your life that you were so proud of yourself. You might actually reflect on this story often enough to remember it, so you don't need to write the whole story. I just want you to write a title of it, some few words that would immediately take your mind back to that time when you were so proud of something that you had accomplished. And when thinking about this time, things back then might have seemed to be just going really well for you in general. Maybe you were working really hard and getting results. Maybe people were noticing your accomplishments and patting you on the back for it. Now, you are going to give this story a title. Think about it. What are a few words? It doesn't have to be clever, and it just needs to immediately remind you of that time when you were proud of yourself. I'll pause for a few moments while you think. It's fine to pause the podcast too if you need some more time. Don't obsess over it, but do take a little moment here for yourself to think about what story, what time in your life were you very proud of yourself. All right. Number 2 is a time you were embarrassed or ashamed. This story might be difficult to pinpoint because it is one that might not resurface that often, or you've probably repressed it in your mind and buried it deep because it brings a nasty, sick feeling to your stomach when you remember it. And it's better, you might say to yourself, to put that story away than to dive back into it and relive that horribly embarrassing moment again. So, think about it. What is your embarrassing story that has in some way shaped your life? Write some words to help you remember that. Give it a title. Give it a name. It might not feel good to go there, but we gotta go there. It's super important to uncover these things that are hiding in our brains and telling us who we are without our permission. Okay? These stories might really be hurting you and you never even knew it. So have a few seconds to write that title down. My title might just be Britney Spears, and that would remind me of my embarrassing singing stories. Okay, lastly is number 3. Number 3 is a time in your life that you were so angry, or angry with the outcome of something, or angry at someone. This story comes back to you at night when you are lying in bed trying to fall asleep. You go there and you imagine how it might have been if you had just stood up for yourself or shouted what you really wanted to say, but you didn't, and so you relive this story over and over and over again. This story, once opened, takes a while to close again. It lingers with you, and you often have to push it away because it's taking your mind off of work or conversations with others or even trying to sleep. Sometimes it even brings up bad feelings towards yourself or others that you thought you had already moved past. Write a few words to represent a title to remind yourself of this story of anger. So, you've got 3 stories down. Great job. This is the beginning of your brain bookshelf. This whole week, I want you, every single time you think of something, to just grab your phone or grab this sheet of paper and write down the story that defines you. Really dig deep back into your life. And honestly, I keep saying this, but it could be from your childhood. It could be from a week ago. All of these experiences totaled together constitute who we are and how we are living our life. So it can be recent. It can be way old. I don't care. Just make sure you're taking a second to dive into it, to learn about yourself from these stories. And as you make a list this week, I also want you to, next to the title, write, what does this say about me? What does this story tell me about me? Or what has it told me about me? My Britney Spears story told me that I needed others' validation to think that I was good at something. When I didn't get that validation from my family, I stopped doing it and just gave up. When I did get it from my friend, I started up again. This story tells me that I value other people's opinions. And whether that's a good thing or not, we will dive into later. But for now, we're just writing down what the story is and what it says about me. These stories have made us into who we are. And it is by looking at the words on the covers of these books and asking ourselves, what does this story do for me? What does it say about me? That we can sort out the stories worth keeping and then find the ones that we ought to trash. The first step to self-love is learning what kind of material is floating around in our brains. What are we working with? What's going on in there? Bringing our attention to these things gives us something to work with. And remember, please, 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 stay away from attaching judgment to your stories. If you find that the stories in your head are mostly negative, please do not start to dwell on that. Don't let it drag you down. Just notice it and then let it pass. This story makes me upset. Why? Because of A, B, and C. Okay, let it go. Let's think about something else. We don't want to add to your distress and your self-defeat. And if you find that you're still having a hard time with that, your extra homework is to write down all the good things that you do this week. If you need to balance the negative stories in your mind with something better, everything that happens to you that's good this week, every single small thing of gratitude, I want you to write it down. And it's perfectly okay to pat yourself on the back. Every smile at a stranger, every time you decide to take some seconds for yourself or make some dinner for the family, you get to give yourself a little love. All right, you guys, that's it for this week. Give yourself a high five for being here. I didn't plan to do that. You are doing something for yourself and you should be proud. I am so glad you came and I can't wait to see what you find out about your brain bookshelf and the stories that you keep there. Stay in contact with me and the Learn, Live, Love Yourself community on Instagram at Learn, Live, Love Yourself Podcast. Yep, you heard it right. It's a mouthful. Learn, Live, Love Yourself Podcast. On Facebook at Learn, Live, Love Yourself and online at learnliveloveyourself.com. Okay, I want to hear how you're doing. I want to hear what you're thinking. And we're going to laugh together. We're going to cry together. I can't wait. Leave a review, and next time, bring a friend.